And does everybody have the agenda where they can see it? Oh, you're going to show it for us. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have it pulled up.
Can everybody see it?
I can see it.
Awesome.
Okay, calling our meeting to order and a roll call. We've got Dan, Nate, Rich, Ann, and Matt. So all are present and accounted for. Matt, do you have the flag you can wave for us for our Pledge of Allegiance?
Give me one quick sec. I'm not going to unfold it though. It's going to be on the internet again.
All righty. That works.
There we go. There's lots of them.
Come on. There we go.
There we go. I pledge allegiance
To
To the flag of the United
States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
is both
indivisible,
liberty and justice
for all.
for all.
All right. Play ball. So any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? None? Okay.
What about Rich's thing that he just sent out?
Well, I mean, that will be covered under item 5, his report.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Public comments. Item 3. Do we have any public comments? I know Rocco said he wanted to talk.
I did not receive any emails or anything, so I think Rocco's the only one.
Where is Rocco?
Right here.
All right.
slide over.
So I put something in chat specifically for Dan Batten, just to follow up from last week's the meeting earlier this week. I got in touch with Doug Lyons from Colorado Springs Utilities. He coordinates the crews that come up, the contractor crews that come up and clear the brush away from power lines. And I had talked to him last year about a tree on our property. And I said, hey, since we talked last, the town has a fire mitigation committee and they're making strides, they're standing up, and they're really wanting to make our town safer. He is willing to come up and meet with a couple of the fire mitigation reps if you have a couple areas you want them to look at. The big factor is if the power line is 7,000 volts plus, it really gets their attention. And they may have time in their schedule and they may have the funding to do a little bit extra up here. So it's worth reaching out. And Dan, I put the contact info there in chat for you.
Yep, received, and it's already in my contacts list. Do you know an Eric Howell or a Jeremy Taylor at CSU?
I know all three of those.
Okay. Yeah, because Jeremy and Eric are the names. I guess they work with the forest program, and those are the names that Chief Myers gave me. But I will reach out to all of them. And then this Doug Lyons person, I think that might be a good person to talk to about that issue that Chief Murphy brought up about the high voltage lines, and that's kind of south of town. I don't know if that's actually still on Green Mountain Falls property or not.
Which is that?
It's pretty much adjacent to the elementary school. Across the valley, there's that high voltage line, and it goes up and over into forest land.
Yeah, that's in Chipeta Park.
Okay, so I don't know. I mean, well, mitigation in Chipeta Park can also help us. So I don't know. I thought about talking to that guy Doug about that being a potential project. So
Yeah, great.
Yeah, Doug does do that line.
okay.
And I'm sure it's a scheduled line, but I don't know how often.
Yeah.
So they'll be coming up to Green Mountain Falls late summer after the contract crews do Manitou. They come up every several years. So this is a good window of opportunity to potentially get a little extra work done. The other item of comment, I invited Ian Willis to the meeting. He's the arborist who lives here in town. He is chomping at the bit to start cutting down the dead and diseased trees up on the town land, up on Mount Rebecca and Mount Esther there by Crystal Falls. And so whatever he needs to fill out, he's willing, able, and ready to fill out whatever paperwork the town requires so he can go up there and start addressing the problem. That's all I have.
Rocco, Ian was the guy that met us on our first meeting, right?
Correct.
Boy, that's great.
Yeah, we have a few people in here in this town that are very motivated to climb trees and use saws.
Well, all we have to do is get a plan together and get it approved by the Board of Trustees, I think.
Yeah, well, as far as the fuels mitigation plan should be coming together shortly. I don't know how much I want to. I don't know how much I want to talk without. I mean, I don't want to. I can bring it up, and then whenever it's my turn in the report section.
Yeah. So, Rocco, thanks for bringing that to our attention about the Colorado Springs utilities. Dan, I guess you'll follow up with them and maybe provide a report to us in the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay. And then also, Rocco, thanks for letting us know about Ian Willis. Is that all, Rocco? Okay. You're welcome. Adrian, I see you're on. Glad to have you tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of things for you later on, unless you had some comments you wanted to make now.
Nothing right now. I mean, it's just the same thing I've been saying every meeting. We're just kind of waiting to hear back from stuff right now. So,
Okay.
we have been going on Thomas Trail again. I have a new sawyer that we hired at Cusp, so I'm training him. So we were up there Monday, and we'll be up there, I think, tomorrow and probably Friday also. But other than that, I really have nothing else to share.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think we have exhausted all of our attendees, public attendees. So we can move on to our item 4 to adopt and approve the minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion, or are there any changes or deletions or edits of any kind that anybody saw?
Move to approve minutes.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. Now moving to item 5, our reports, and there's no particular order of importance here. I just kind of wrote these down as sort of as we went last time. So Rich, you sent out a redraft of your notification and evacuation plan.
Yeah, it didn't change much. It's just easier to read. A couple minor changes, nothing major. So I just sent that out. So if anybody has comments or whatever they need that I need to add into it or whatever. I did look at that map. Go ahead.
The question I have at this point, I guess for the group, what do we think is next here for the evacuation plan? Is this something that we need to have more comment on? Do we need to present this to the Board of Trustees? What is it that we think the next step is?
I think it needs a map. No, but
Yeah, there
I was
there
thinking,
was a map. there's a map attached on this thing here that we can probably use. And in the evacuation plan, there's a place to insert a map.
Okay. And is that, I can help if I haven't seen the map. I don't think it's attached in here. But,
It's on tonight's agenda. It wasn't attached to this.
oh, okay. The maps I did, you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay. And yeah, I
all we
meant
have to do
to,
is expand them.
yeah, and I meant to draw in just the zones. Obviously, it's a pretty simple boundary line there, but I just simply forgot to put that on the map. But I'll do that very soon, and I can send it out just for reference to the group. But in any of these discussions, just keep in mind I can pretty much throw anything we want on that base map of the town, do different themes and different combinations of data. So if, as we're discussing these things, if anyone thinks of anything, just let me know and I can make note and add that. But
I would like to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I'd like to get together with you so we can expand that map a little bit and make it a little bit
Okay.
larger. And
Yeah.
say have section A as one map and section B as a map, and then an overall map. That
Okay.
way everybody can see the overall thing, section A and section B, and we can make it a little bigger so you can actually see the roads. I noticed there's some roads on that map that aren't, they're kind of there, but they're not listed, like Kansas Street, and some of those just aren't there.
Right. Yeah, they're not all labeled just for space, but yeah, I can definitely play around with different
So that
sizes
way
of
when you
labels and all that.
make it a little bigger, like a sheet size, and
Yeah.
just insert it in there and draw little lines on it, and I think we'll be good with that.
What size of, I guess, format are you thinking of as in general? Is like 11 by 17? Is that kind of what you're thinking of, or like ledger or letter?
I
Or?
would just think a standard paper size, whatever the size these papers are, just a standard paper size so you can attach
Okay.
it to this. If we
Yeah.
make it huge,
Split it up.
I mean, we can make a big one for town or wherever else, but if
Right.
we're going to hand these things out to people, it needs to be something that can attach right to the evacuation plan and be about the same size.
Okay. Well, I'll work on splitting the town in two based on those zones and labeling and all that.
Okay. And I also contacted, can't think of the name of the siren agency, and I thought I would have it today as far as siren placement, control, and all that stuff, and an estimated cost. I've contacted Century Sirens down in Penrose, and I was hoping to have everything back today, but it didn't come. I just checked my email a minute ago, so he was hoping to have it back to me today, but it didn't come. So I will have siren placement, which we went over maps of the town, and I told him probably at town hall and then at the town maintenance yard. The reason those two are there is we have electricity available for both of those places, plus a battery backup. And
Hey, Rich,
that seemed like the most logical.
excuse me just a minute, Rich. Matt, could you put that map up that that we have in the packet? So
Yes.
that we can look at that real quick.
I'll do it right now.
Sorry to interrupt, Rich, but I'm a visual.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
So what you're saying,
Nate-
Rich, is where?
The town hall, one siren placement there. And the next siren placement would be at the town maintenance yard.
And that's not where those arrows go. I can adjust the arrow, that kind of horizontal one. That's pointing to the existing fire station. So
Yeah, well, that's fine. It'll basically be right behind that anyway, and just a couple houses over.
Right.
Is where
yeah.
the siren that we're currently looking at. That's just, we've only talked on the phone and we looked at maps and stuff. And of course, you've got a mountain dividing those two areas. So the
Right.
problem with the siren that was on top of the firehouse, it didn't get up Belvedere very well. And it didn't get, basically El Paso Trail and up in there, you just couldn't hear it. And obviously now you couldn't hear it at the fire station, the new fire station or the town hall. So we were thinking 2 sirens would be what was needed.
Okay, and so we feel like the placement and having 2 sirens will give us good coverage for the entire town.
He's working on that now. He's got a graphic or a topo map of Green Mountain Falls, and he was working on making sure he could get the coverage.
Okay.
And he has a general idea where town hall is, general idea where the town maintenance yard is. Other than that, that's about all we've talked about. Like I say, I was hoping he'd have that to me this afternoon, but apparently he didn't finish it. So I don't have it to present to you. But in our discussions, that's kind of what we were looking at. I also told him that we'd need activation by computer and if possible by phone, because none of those places are staffed on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis. But that's all I have so far on the siren placement, and hopefully by the next meeting I'll have everything.
Excellent.
And
Okay.
so, but we have talked, and he is working on a plan, and that's just what we talked about was 2 siren placement because of the mountain between just the way the topography is in Green Mountain Falls. You almost have to have 2 because you just can't reach
Right.
everyone. You know, we could put it on top of Red Mountain and it would work from there, but we run into a problem with electricity and cost is going to be more. It becomes prohibitive then. We've got current electricity at 2 locations that we can use that the town owns, which wouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
And that's about all I have.
Can we go back to the evacuation plan for just a minute? How do y'all see the, how do we use this evacuation plan, or how do we, is this part of our education program where we want to roll this out to the town or have it available for townspeople? I guess I'm struggling a little bit with the vision of how to get this implemented.
I think there can be several ways. Of course, number one, we got to get the town to approve it. And
Right,
then
yeah.
secondly, it would be on the website of the town,
Okay.
showing the evacuation plan, obviously. And then I would think handouts to the community would be just as good too. Because you got to do something other than just the website. And a website-based thing is all by itself just won't work.
Would it be cost prohibitive to maybe do mailers as well?
Mailers gets expensive just due to the cost of the stamps, believe it or not. But I mean, you could have handouts. You could put them at town hall. You could put them at the firehouse. You could put them at the post office without mailing, and you could even put them at the Cascade post office.
Yeah.
And that cost would be the cost of the paper and the printing, obviously. And
Okay.
I'm not sure what that would be. I'm sure we have the funds that we could be able to do that.
I have a rough ballpark of what the printing something like that might be, because we did it for census. We did some pamphlets and stuff, which would probably be kind of that's a similar cost. So I can get a rough idea of that pretty quickly, and just so we know.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good way to go about it, but you also want to make sure you have training and type and all the other things in a pamphlet as well. But I don't.
So in the map portion of this, which you and Nate are going to work on, Rich, I would assume you get the map where you want it in terms of identifying all the streets and, you know, having it the appropriate, expanded size and all that sort of thing. Will we have evacuation routes on the map? And
Yeah, pretty much. But in Green Mountain Falls, it's not real hard to figure out the evacuation routes because you go down the hill and out. Most of them are pretty much self-explanatory because you only have one way out. There's rarely that you're gonna have two ways out. If there's a fire in Chipeta Park, everybody could exit to the west. If there's a fire that starts up the canyon in Chipeta or in Green Mountain Falls, then it could be two separate directions. Half the town could go east, half the town could go west, just to get out of that canyon area. But other than that, if you evacuate the whole town at once, it's just a kind of Division A. If it's available to them, they go to the east. Division B, however it was separated, would go to the west. If there's a fire below us, everybody goes to the west. If there's a fire above us, everybody goes to the east. So you're kind of limited on how to get out of this town.
Yeah.
And you don't want to send them up a hill into a canyon where it would endanger them. So it's best to just give them a simplistic way to get out. And then a couple safe zones we've talked about. The firehouse being one of them, and the other one, I think you pass elementary. But those are pretty much where you have to walk to. So if you're trapped and you can get out on foot, you can walk to those areas.
And I can graphically, we can meet whenever you want, Rich, but I can graphically represent kind of the streets with arrows or something, kind of a flow.
Yeah, and that
know,
would be an ideal situation. You just stick an arrow on each street. There's
Yeah.
a couple of them we can look up. Oh, up on, is it Falls? Up in there, there's a couple tight streets up in there. You can actually take a couple ways out. And neither one of them are great, but one is probably better than the other.
Yeah. Yeah, just let me know when you want to meet. We can kind of, I'll have some drafts ready and we can kind of sketch
Okay.
them up. And I'm
Yeah,
pretty
just-
flexible, so.
Yeah, I am too. I'm retired. I got all day and to do it and nothing to do it. So
Nice.
pretty good.
Cool. Well, we can set up time next week and I'll give me a date to have
Okay.
the drafts ready.
Okay, so let's shoot for our next meeting at the end of May to be able to look at our evacuation plan with inclusive of the map. And I'd like for everybody on the committee to review this. If you have some things that you want to add or maybe edit questions and shoot those over to Rich for his consideration. And let's try to get this to close to a final product for our next meeting. And perhaps if we're satisfied with it at that point, we can.
What's the next meeting date? Do you know?
It
Off
would
the top
be
of your head?
whatever the fourth Wednesday in May is.
Should be the 26th of May, I think.
Okay.
Yep, 26th.
I will not be here.
No.
That is my anniversary. 24th is my anniversary and we're going away. See here.
I'm leaving the next day.
Golly jeepers.
Let me look here.
Is there any way that you might be able to get your close to final draft to us?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty close right now, unless people have changes that they want to see in there, they want additions in there. I mean, this is not by any means law. I mean, if you see something you want in there, just let me know and I'll stick it in there. So it's really not law, but I'm kind of okay with it. And it's a fluid document, so let's see, our meeting is on the 26th, and I probably will not be back till the 27th.
Okay.
But
So if
I
you-
can sure have everything ready for you and get it sent to you. And if I get that information on the siren and stuff, which I expect I should have it any day now, I can send that out to everybody so they can get an idea of the cost and placement and coverage and all that other stuff. Because he's supposed to be putting together an entire plan. And I don't know what it's going to be like. I haven't seen it.
I think that is, I think if we could get the siren information with cost, get our plan more, with the map included and all that sort of thing, so that we can roll this together as kind of one, presentation to the Board of Trustees for adoption.
Yeah.
At least we need to get we need to put them on notice about the siren and the cost of that. So that, you know, they can then include it in the budget, whether it's, you know, this year or next year.
Yeah, I don't have any idea of cost right now. And like I say, the range for sirens and stuff ranges anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000. It's
Yeah.
a wide range. And then computer systems and everything else, I just don't know. I know Manitou paid over $22,000 for their one. So, but I don't think it's going to cost us anywhere near that.
Okay.
I have one suggestion on the document itself.
Go ahead.
Just that section B, I was thinking it doesn't, I mean, that's great information to have, but I was thinking it may not be right in the middle of sort of the evacuation, like procedures, kind of like if it could be like either a preface or a appendix or something that just says, hey, these are things you should do regardless, you know, of what evacuation. I don't know what the best format is. Obviously it's good information. I just don't know. It just kind of felt in the middle of everything there.
Yeah, it's laid out so it's before, during, and after is how it's laid out. So everything in A and B is a before evacuation.
Right.
Everything in the center is during evacuation, and everything at the end is after evacuation. You can put that somewhere else if you want, but if you do that, then you lose a lot of before evacuation.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking maybe it's even before A, like it is A, or it's like these are things everyone should do, and then like A is actual like the event, like this is happening.
Yeah.
But
What,
just a
what,
suggestion.
yeah, why don't, since Rich sent it out in a Word document format, it would be easy for people to take this document and use your red line. And if you want to make changes, you know, any changes you make will be redlined, and we can all see where you're suggesting a change.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying about B there. If you're going to take that out, then it has to be in some other document, like planning document,
Yeah, or even
you
this
know,
document.
wildfire document for clearing around your house and stuff. It's going to have to be
Yeah.
somewhere else.
I think
So
even if it's like
going to
the
have to
first,
be another drafted document.
yeah, I agree. Even if it's in here, I was just thinking it could be like the first thing, because it's really important for people to read that no matter what, and it should be obvious. I just thought it was kind of a preventative kind of maintenance thing that you should do, anyone should do. And then
Yeah.
the current A kind of goes into, this is actually, okay, this is happening, so do these things now, you know.
The way I kind of look at this is that you could put all this information into a packet, but what I envision is that the actual evacuation plan needs to be pretty short and sweet, very simple.
Yeah.
One-page document that somebody can magnet to their fridge. That's kind of what I envision, is the evacuation plan is the very bold bullet.
Yeah, and B could very easily go somewhere else as long as we get it somewhere else.
Yeah. Like I said, I think in a packet with maybe a couple of different pages, and the one page says, hey, this is the emergency evacuation procedures. Very, very simple and short. And then on another page, it has it in less bold terms. Here's all the mitigation efforts that you can do before an emergency, and this is what you can do during, this is what you can do after.
Yeah.
But the main message for the evacuation, I envision it being, like I said, one document that's big, bold, bright letters that, they could magnetize or put up somewhere in their house, things like that. But that's my 2 cents.
You could do that with that, the second section in here. That would be just the evacuation plan. And I think that's section, I can't see it, but I think it's section C. That is the actual evacuation. So A and B could be somewhere else. And then even I think it's D. Can you scroll that up by any chance?
Matt?
Matt, you there?
I'm here, sorry.
Yeah, come on, scroll up there. Okay, there's the zones. And there's during evacuation. So B by itself could actually be say, okay, here's the evacuation plan. But all that other stuff has to be somewhere in close proximity to the evacuation plan.
Yeah, I like the idea of having the actual evacuation plan standing apart, so that in that moment when somebody, you know, you're faced with it, they can go to that one thing, like Dan said. If it's got a magnet on the refrigerator door, here's what I got to do. Yeah, I think that's
That would be basically just D. And then A and C and E would have to go somewhere else.
okay.
So D is not very big.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, if you wanted, you know, you're gonna have to move down zone A, zone B, and evacuation routes into section D, which would be fine. And then that would be the shortest document you could probably come up with.
Okay, well, let's incorporate some of those suggestions into this document and send it back out for review before the next meeting, please, Rich.
Okay, yeah, just send me what you think. If you want to keep section A and B and C basically out, then you would go to D, and that would, evacuation plan would start right there. The other stuff you could put in an informational document, kind of like the Firewise documents, what you do around your house, preparation before and after. You could actually do that in separate documentation.
Okay.
And we could drop zones right down into during evacuation or evacuation plan.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of ideas rolling around in my head. I'll just add to it and give my
Okay.
2 cents and see what we can come up with.
That'd be great, Dan.
Yeah, either way, I would say look at it as evacuation only. And if you want to keep the other stuff in a separate document, that would be fine. But it has to be out there somewhere.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, for sure.
Okay, well, Dan, put your ideas together, send it to Rich. I'm going to do the same thing, and Rich can kind of pull it all together and give us a redraft before our next meeting.
Okay,
Sound good?
I can do that.
All right, and we'll have a map as well.
Yeah, I'll give it Nate, and we can draft that map. That makes it
Yeah.
cart before the horse. But we'll try to.
Yeah, we can get together.
I think we can go ahead and draft that with a map and stuff, and just focus on section D.
Yeah.
Because that looks like what everybody's leaning to is that section D.
Yeah.
For evacuation.
The
All
end,
right.
the
Okay,
end
yeah,
product, the end product could be a nice PDF that has bookmarks in it and stuff. So, you know, when you open it from the website or whatever, it has digital bookmarks to kind of easily navigate it. And then including the maps. You know, the maps could be appendixes, or they could be their own, you know, at least bookmarks, so you can just jump around. So
Yeah.
we can fine tune it once everyone's gotten their input. And
Yeah,
we can
once I
have
get the input,
maps.
I'll get it put together, and then we can kind of attach the map to it and see what happens from that point. But I need your input fairly soon so I can get it all put together.
Say by
And then
say by what date would you like to have it, Dick, Rich?
Let me see here. Soon. I'm kind of busy this month, believe it or not. I don't know, maybe 10th. Does that give everybody time?
Yeah, that should be plenty of time.
And then I'll try to get it put together, and I'll have it ready for you. I mean, I'm not going to be there the 24th. And I got people coming over the 18th through the 24th. They're leaving the same day I am. But
Okay.
I'll
May
get that
10th.
all put together and get it sent out. And then if
So-
I get the information on the sirens and stuff, I'll get that sent out as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
So everybody get your stuff to Rich by the 10th. Any edits? All right, let's move to Dan, please.
So I met with Adrian and on the 2nd, and we went and looked at the work that had already been done on the Wallace Preserve. And we also looked at the work that had been done below the Thomas Trail. And after we looked at those projects, basically it was just a demonstration of what kind of mitigation work basically needs to be done on that slope and that kind of vegetation model. So, it's pretty much thinning it out and lop and scatter. I won't go into too many details, but it was good work. It's going to make it where it's at least the fire activity, if it gets in there, won't be as intense. We also talked about the Wallace Preserve. I don't want to step too much into the education realm, but we did come up with some ideas because their original plan for the Wallace Preserve was to not only just mitigate it, but also use it as an example for what a mitigated home would look like, and what fire-wise and a fire-hardened home would look like. So we discussed, not only are they going to put the material on the exterior of the home, or that garage that's there, that's actually fire resistive and all that stuff, but we talked about actually putting signs on it so that it would explain, this is why we use this material, and this is why the vegetation has been thinned out, and things like that. So when somebody looks at it, they know exactly what they're looking at. We put signs near the gutters saying, this is what a clean gutter does whenever an ember lands in it, and this is what a gutter filled with needle cast does when an ember falls in it. So we talked about maybe putting up some signs in that area, and also showing some before and after photos of what the forest looked like around the garage, the building there, before they mitigated it, and now what it looks like after they mitigated it, just to give an example. And then that same day, we met up with Rocco, and we went to the potential mitigation project off of Iona, which really seems like, I can't remember the lady's name that joined our meeting last time that brought it up. Dory. I think Dory gave us a really good project. It's on town land, and it's got a lot of dead trees, and it definitely needs to be mitigated. So, and it's going to be a high visible project that we can, something that a lot of people in the community will see us doing. Matt and I spoke about it when we were there. Matt came out to the site. We talked about putting signs up saying, hey, this is being done, with the assistance of the Green Mountain Falls Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee, kind of just a road sign that says this is what's going on. And this is what we're doing to help try to mitigate the fire danger.
Dan, where's that at?
It is, if you bring that map up, Matt, do you mind bringing it up?
Which map are you referencing?
The one you brought up earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And so can you move your cursor to where it says Iona Avenue? Yep. So if you come to the south on that Iona Road.
Oh, it's where that trail comes up through there?
Yeah, it's that old social trail that I can't remember the name of it. But if you look at it, see there's that it looks like a road that crosses the Iona Avenue. That's actually not a road. That's one of our, our fantastic roads in Green Mountain Falls that was plotted in Kansas in the 1800s that never got made. So that's city-owned land. So we have, we can do all that work there, and we can mitigate a lot of the vegetation out of there. And like I said, it's a high visibility project that'll kind of maybe get some interest from the community. So everybody clear on where that is? Okay.
So Dan, what is the plan to mitigate it though? Do we, are we going to do it strictly through volunteers? Are we going to need to have funds dedicated? What is it that, as far as a plan is concerned, that we would want to submit to the Board of Trustees for approval?
Well, right now I'm working on trying to get as much free or cheap labor as I can. What I envision to be able to present to a board is a finished plan with costs. And we're a couple steps away from that. I do have some people lined up. Let's see, that was kind of what I was going to bring up. I've talked to my DFPC cohort in Colorado Springs that has a 10-person hand crew. Essentially, they're called a module. But they said that they would be happy to come up and do some work, and that's free. Well, one of the resources that I'm going to reach out to is with CSU. The CSU folks can come up and do some work that they could chalk up to chainsaw training, things like that. And then also the El Paso County Sheriff's Office has a wildland crew, and they have 30 volunteers. And I'm hoping that I can get them involved. And that actually makes me jump ahead a little bit. I kind of have an announcement, maybe. El Paso County Wildland Team actually offered me a position to work there. So I accepted it. I'm in the background investigation process and all that stuff. So, you know, there's many a slip between a cup and a lip, but, you know, it looks like I'll be starting there probably in June, and I'll actually be one of the battalion chiefs there that coordinates and helps organize their efforts in mitigation projects.
Excellent.
So,
Congrats,
you're
Dan.
gonna, yeah, thanks. So you're going to potentially have an inside man with El Paso County. So
That's great.
but yeah, well, it's kind of weird timing, but it turns out that it might be a really cool thing. So, so yeah, so my plan is to get some cost estimates, hoping that I won't have to actually hire out contract crews, at least for this small project. And then having a finished plan to present, you know, saying, all right, we're going to have to engage some contractors. One of the steps that one of the next action items that I have is I need to contact a gentleman named Steve Randolph through the State Forest Service, because one of the things that we need to consider whenever we start falling all these trees is if they're beetle kill or not, and whether or not, if basically we need to know how we have to mitigate it. So if they're beetle kill trees and the beetles are still active in them, then we can't just fall them and leave them. We have to take some extra measures to try to keep the beetles from escaping and then just going to the next tree. So my first step is for this Steve Randolph to come out and assess the diseased and dying trees and actually tell us what's going on with them, what's killing them, and then that will form the next step of the plan. Is, okay, can we just cut these down? Can we use them for firewood? Can we use them for water bars? Can we lop and scatter them? Or do we need to drop them and tarp them for a season so that the beetles will die? You know, so it's all part of the process of how we actually mitigate it. Not what we mitigate, but how we mitigate it. So that's then one of the next steps for actually coming up with a cost for it. What else did I have? We met on Tuesday. Dave Root and Michelle Connolly with CUSP came out to look at our projects. And in my conversations with Dave and with Michelle, an interesting subject came up. And Matt had mentioned it before we actually convened the meeting this evening. And that's that, you know, most of these grants that we would apply for, and Ann could probably speak more educatedly to this, but most of these grants that we're going to apply for are going to require 50% match. And, you know, sometimes these projects become very expensive, and we really may not be able to meet that 50%. And in an effort to maybe maybe possibly mitigate some of the costs directly to Green Mountain Falls. We kind of came up with an idea of a UPass fuels or fire mitigation consortium. So, and the benefit of that would be that if we join hands with, say, Woodland Park and Cascade and Japita Park and maybe Manitou, and we all come together as a consortium, and we have multiple small projects that we could then lump into a large project. So we then present that for a grant, and then we can maybe get more done if we buy in bulk. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So this is something that Dave Root had, postulated in the past. I guess there was maybe a little bit of interest previously, but it kind of waned. But I certainly think it's worth the effort to maybe reach out to some of our neighbors and maybe try it again. One of the things that Dave had mentioned is that in order for us to actually be able to apply for these grants, and I don't know anything about business, but I guess we need to be a 503C or something like that. And Steve Murphy, who was also with us on Tuesday when we went up to the Iona project, he had said that through what I guess was an existing, and Rich, you could probably speak to this, was an existing UPass community wildfire protection plan.
Yeah.
That actually might still have the 503C status, and then we might just be able to use that.
I believe it does, and you'll have to get a hold of him. Can't think of his name. He's down in Cascade.
Okay.
He actually has all that information. Yeah.
It's not Bud Bright, is it?
Who?
It's not Bud Bright, right? Is it?
No. Steve would know, and I just can't think of his name. I know him. I can see his face and everything, but I can't think of his name. But that was the old fire mitigation or wildfire protection program that the UPass area had at one time.
Yeah, and if it's still good, I guess, which I think it is. I think it's been re-upped every year.
I believe so.
We could potentially, we could call our group whatever we want to call it, but we could use that CWPP as the catalyst for being able to apply for, like I said, a larger scale projects up and down the UPass corridor, which we all know, if a fire starts in Cascade, chances are it's going to come here. So. The next thing that I have is, and I hope I didn't step out of line, but I did plant a bug in Todd Dixon's ear. If you know who Todd Dixon is, he's I guess he's the chair of the planning committee, and they're rewriting some of the city codes.
Yes.
So I had mentioned to him, and Matt and I talked about this on our first day that we went out. There's a wildland urban interface building code that exists that I mentioned that if maybe Green Mountain Falls were to adopt this code, maybe that could help. And basically what that code is in a nutshell is for new construction, which we don't have a whole lot of new construction in Green Mountain Falls right now, but maybe in 20 years we might. If we adopt this code, what that basically stipulates is that all new construction in the town is the home needs to be built with fire resistant materials. The roof needs to be fire resistive. Vegetation needs to be cleared out to a certain perimeter. And that's all basically saying, like, if you want to build your new construction here, this is the code you have to meet, just like any other code. You have to use this gauge of wire when you're running this voltage, things like that. So it's a plan that already exists, and it's already been adopted in a few communities in Colorado Springs. Planning committee met last night, and I gave them just a little bit of information and a couple contacts of people who could more eloquently speak to the subject, and also a contact within the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department that would actually have to be involved in if Green Mountain Falls were to adopt this code. Again, I don't know that that's really our role, but Todd Dixon was curious and he came out with us and we got to talking. And that's what happened. So, the action items that I have that I basically want to get checked off for the next meeting is contact the guys at CSU to see if we can maybe get some free labor out of them. I mentioned the El Paso County Sheriff's Department news. Oh, the Iona project, one of the things on my list is to actually contact the private landowners that are adjacent to that city-owned land and essentially just approach that like I normally do, is try to call these folks and maybe have a cup of coffee with them and introduce myself, let them know what I'm doing, what we're planning on doing, and basically get their permission that, you know, if we step a foot on their property and accidentally drop one of their trees, you know, try to preload and basically try to get them on our team, essentially. And then I mentioned contact Steve Rudolph and actually have him come out and do an assessment of the what's going on in the tree mortality and all that. And the only question I have is that if I contact Steve, we might need to pay him. So I guess what I would do is I'll find out if we do need to pay him. And if we do, then I'll send an email out to, I guess, one or two of us. Maybe I'll send it to you, David. And then just let you know, all right, this is what we're looking at as far as charges for him to come out and assess the diseased trees.
All right.
Dan, could you include me in that email too, if you don't mind?
Sure. So, and that is the end of my report.
Okay, thanks. A lot of great stuff going on there, Dan. You've made a lot of progress in the last month. Matt, I guess I want to get a little feedback from you. If we had a project, let's just say the Iona project, that could be carried out completely from volunteer efforts, no cost whatsoever to come from city coffers, I would assume we would still need city approval for that project. Is that correct? I mean,
Yes.
particularly since it would be on a big portion of it would be on city land.
Right. And so in that regard, the biggest concern, of course, is liability issues. And so even if they were volunteers, I would imagine that the board would want them to be insured.
Okay.
But
So
that's
what
something
does that mean when we say the board would want to make sure they're insured? What would they be required to have as insurance or proof of insurance?
I don't have an exact answer for that right now,
It-
but I think
It kind of depends on the agency you're going to be using.
yeah.
If
Let's
you're
just say
using
it's-
county wildland team,
Let's just say it's Ian Willis.
that could be a problem. He could sign up as a volunteer with the town, is my understanding. And as a volunteer of the town, he would probably be covered under workers' compensation as a volunteer. But he would have to sign up with the town as a volunteer, is my understanding.
I think
The
Matt,
idea was even brought up Tuesday about using like Boy Scouts. You know, we probably wouldn't have them running chainsaws, but you know, you could maybe have the Eagle Scouts. They, I think if Rocco's still on, I think Rocco had mentioned it. That, you know, the Eagle Scouts often do those. They have like a project that they have to do to get like their Eagle Scout badge or whatever. And what would it look like to have, you know, underage, to have minors out there? You know, do we have their parents sign liability forms? You know.
Yeah, you would have to have liability for minors, and they still have to be under workers' compensation. Whether it would come from the scouts or not, I don't know if they carry that kind of insurance.
Okay.
so. How about this? Let me do some research on mine to give you a more specific and precise answer on this.
That
Okay,
would be great. Yeah, because there's a lot of questions we probably need to
but
answer.
if you're using county or city crews, they're an organized crew and they do have workers' compensation. County crews have workers' compensation, city crews do. So you kind of don't have a problem with that type of operation. But anybody you bring in as a volunteer, you're probably going to run into compensation insurance problems.
Well, I mean, Adrian could probably speak to this too, that, you know, because they've had, you know, the Swift crew and they've had organizations come in and do work already. You know, what did they do to deal with that?
Those organizations are covered by workers' comp.
Yeah, I was actually just going to step in and say, I mean, if it's something like Boy Scouts, or I mean, you know, a lot of high school students in the area need community service to graduate nowadays. Air Force Academy cadets we've used as volunteers. If there's something that we can figure out that we can use a core of volunteers for, you know, we have our volunteer waiver releases and liability releases. So if it's something that we can work where a CUSP crew is there, we can have a big crew of volunteers doing a lot of work and just have them underneath kind of our CUSP wing by having them sign our waivers is another possibility if that makes things easier.
Adrian, can you and I catch up offline on this and maybe get some more info from you on how I could create something like that here? Because I don't even know if it exists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Adrian, have you been to the Iona tract, or we're calling it the Iona project? Have you looked at that?
Yeah, I have.
So what if you had to ballpark it, and let's just say, you know, your crew was going to do it, what do you think the cost would be if it was just a pure, we're going to, you know, you're going to pay for it? What do you think the cost would be?
That's tough. I'm really bad at estimating things like that. I mean, a lot of it would depend on what you want to do with the material and the slash. So, I mean, if you're chipping stuff and leaving firewood on site, that would make it a lot cheaper. I would guess, you know, if we're talking about the stuff that's just below the roads, so I mean, the kind of stuff that's in that corner below, or if we're talking about stuff going all the way up to Hondo, that's also going to make a difference. But I would think the stuff below the road, if it's what I'm thinking of, would maybe take, I'm going to be optimistic and think a week of cutting and chipping for CUSP crew. So I would think that would run, I mean, you know, for example, Swift crew is charging $1,800 a day and they're pretty cheap. So that would be the very bottom limit, I would assume. But as far as how much it would cost, I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces involved in that. So I wouldn't want to hazard a guess right now.
Yeah, the Swift crews are pretty cheap if you can get them.
Yeah, if you can get them, which I've kind of been out of contact with them this past year. I know they've had a lot of things going on. Yeah, so I would say that's probably the very low end. I'd have to go out and look at it more seriously to try and get an actual accurate estimate, though.
Well, Dan, should we try to get somebody like, you know, CUSP or, you know, a crew to go in and give us a bid for the work that we want done, so that we at least have a cost that if we had to pay for it out of pocket, we could say to the Board of Trustees, it's going to cost us, we'll say $20,000. However, we're going to try to get this done through volunteer efforts. So, you know, so we could frame up, here is the project, you know, if we were to hire it out completely, it would cost this much, but we're going to try to do it with all volunteer, and maybe we need a few bucks to, you know, spend on, you know, some things, and it wouldn't be more than $5,000. Would that be possible to do?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, we can definitely give them, you know, this is what the expensive price tag is, and then this is what the price tag that we have tried to come up with by being creative. I mean, I don't know much about the cost of mitigation, but I do know that $17,000 is not going to buy us much of actual fuels mitigation, especially in Green Mountain Falls. So
let's just take the Iona project and let's just say let's define, when we say the Iona project, what is that? Is it all the way from Hondo down to?
Is that a half acre or full acre, or do you know?
It's not very wide.
But you also have the private landowners as well.
Well, we wouldn't be going on in any of the private landowners' land.
But they might want to be included in it, right?
Yeah, but then that adds another twist, because then it's, well, is the town going to pay for mitigation on private land, or is the homeowner going to kick in some money? Are they going to say, hey, well, while you're here, I'll go ahead and pay to have mine done? And that's part of the conversations that I would be having when I reach out to these landowners. Because if they do say that, then it's like, okay, well, yeah, we'll lump you in, but just understand there'll be some cost to it. Because I can't imagine town of Green Mountain Falls is going to be volunteering to pay for mitigation for private landowners.
Me neither.
Is there do we have an idea of like what a cost per acre is like up on Thomas versus what a cost per acre is down in town that's accessible by, vehicles?
There are figures out there, cost per acre, but it goes up as you get on the side of a mountain. It goes up as you have heavy timber. So an average cost per acre is pretty tough to come up with, but it's not cheap.
So
there are you could probably just Google it and get the answer for it, but there are different costs for hand mitigation versus machine mitigation versus prescribed burning. Obviously, like prescribed burning is the cheapest way of mitigating, but you can only do that in certain environments once the people have been medicated to a certain point already. So, yeah, I don't know off the top of my head what the costs are, but the most expensive is the hand mitigation, which is really our only option, at least on this Iona project.
Yeah.
So just kind of as an example, for the furworm grant that we put in for Green Mountain Falls and the Eat Pass corridor, that got rejected, but we're reworking right now. Our cost per acre, and this was an expensive cost per acre, and we made it more expensive than it actually is, kind of on purpose, just because we didn't run out of money. But we're guessing about $5,500 an acre. With the steepness, with the rockiness, it's all going to be hand cut. If there's going to be any sort of chipping or hauling away of anything, that's really, really, really labor intensive. So the acres there are going to be expensive. Something like the Iona project, you could do for probably quite a bit cheaper because the road's right there. So it's just a matter of hauling stuff to the road as opposed to Thomas Trail, hauling things all the way out. But just kind of as an example, that's what we put in for that furworm grant originally, was about $5,500 an acre.
Ann has her hand up, by the way.
I've just got something I'd like to mention. I just haven't really gotten it together, but I attend Our Lady of the Woods Catholic Church here in Woodland Park, and they have a project, they've had it for years, where a group of men go in and cut trees down and take them away, and then they give away the wood to people who need it. It's a charitable effort, but it also helps someone who needs their property mitigated. They would at least, I talked to Dan, one of the young guys up there, and he said he felt like they would at least come and take the wood away for us, and they would handle that part. They've got trucks and stuff to get it out. And then they would actually cut it up and give it to needy people. So that's just another idea. And they're, of course, a charitable effort, if a nonprofit themselves. I can give you the contact information if you want.
Absolutely, yeah, please.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent resource.
Yep.
And that made me think of another thing. As you're going up and down the pass area, you know, part of us is in Teller County. And I was just reading today's Courier. I just get it a day late. And there's all this stuff in here. I haven't read it yet. Teller County, IREA, joined Fluorescent Community Fire Mitigation Group. You know, this is out of, Pat Hill wrote the paper, or the two big articles. So I agree that, you know, as Dan is talking about making this a wider effort and not just our town, is as Rich says, you know, fire doesn't know where the line ends. And so I just thought I'd throw that in about the church. Thank you.
No, and please share that contact. I'll definitely reach out to them.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Does everybody agree, or maybe I should phrase it differently, but do y'all feel like that the Iona project is something that we ought to make a priority and really press forward to get that accomplished?
I believe it probably is, because it shows that the committee is moving forward and trying to get something done. If we can get even landowners to say, okay, I'd like to have this tree taken down, and we can tell them, okay, it's going to cost you a couple $100 or $500 or whatever it is. But I think we should move along with that project so we can show we're getting something accomplished. Both that and the evacuation plan should go ahead quite quickly.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the Iona project is going to do much more in publicity for us than it will actually fire mitigation. I mean,
So that's my view as well. But I don't want to just, impose what I think is our priorities. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. But it seems to me that where we really ought to focus our attention is on things where we say these should be our priority. And if Iona, we all believe is a priority, let's put our time and attention on that project and a timeline to get it done. And kind of knock one thing down at a time. And once we get that complete, we move to the next sort of project on fuels mitigation, rather than trying to pursue too many things at once. And then, things just never happen. So I wonder if we can really put our effort and time on the Iona project. Dan?
Ann has her hand up, just a heads up.
I was just going to mention too that, that side of town with the deep canyons and heavily forested, even if it's not a lot of mitigation that would happen, that is a good place to start. My properties are on the other side of town, and it's not as heavily forested, if you understand what I mean.
mm-hmm.
Big groves of trees. So maybe that is a good idea just also to start over there. I don't know.
Well, it's a pretty good spot. It's a spot that definitely needs mitigation. There are a lot of dead trees in there, not just for fire mitigation. It needs to be cleared. It's like I said earlier, it's a high visibility area. People will see what we're doing. And like I said, I think we'll gain more in social capital out of this project than we will actually out of fire mitigation, but it will do some good. The only issue, David, that I would want to mention about trying to expedite this project is that the more we rely on free or cheap labor, the more the likelihood that it might take longer. Mainly because, we would probably be asking most fire crews, people who are actually wildland firefighters, to be doing the work. And then, we're on the cusp of the season starting here soon, and they're going to get busy. So, and they, this project will have to go on the back burner for them. So
how about we could approach it this way? We need some information that Matt's going to collect. which is if we wanted to tackle this project through volunteer effort, what would the town require of us in order to move forward with volunteers? Right? I mean, we don't know that precisely. Matt, is that something you can find out for us?
Absolutely. And what I'll do too is I'll try and get it done by next week so we can try and expedite this. I know this is an important project for the committee. So I'll get to work on it right away.
Thanks, Matt.
Yes, sir.
May I?
By the way, Nathan
I,
has his hands up.
Go ahead, Matt. I agree. The only thing that I see that we really need to get the evacuation plan forward, because the fire season has already started. Arizona has very large fires. New Mexico has very large fires. California just popped one today. So we're approaching the fire season here, and it's going to be dramatic. We haven't had enough moisture to take us out of a drought yet. The western slope is horrible, and we're not that good. So evacuation plan, I'd like to see that get approved and at least put out there. The mitigation plan, I agree. That's got to be done as soon as possible. But if we can just get this evacuation plan rolled out and say, here it is, put it on the town website or wherever you need to put it, to give some people some confidence that we're doing something, because it's something we can put out there relatively quick and inexpensive.
I think
Well,
that too, Rich, because you see, that also alerts people. My
well,
goodness.
okay, hold on just a minute. I thought we had already agreed on a timeline for the evacuation plan. Everybody needs to provide comment to you by the 10th of May. You are going to give us a revised draft with a map before the next meeting. So
Yeah, and I should have the siren information before the next meeting.
okay,
But
so
we
we're gonna
can't
have
really do anything with that stuff until we present it to council and for council to approve it and then give it back to us. What I'm saying is this turns into a long process. We can sit here and talk all we want, but until we get approval of council, we can't move ahead with anything. That's the problem with being a committee as such, because council has final rule over what we accomplish. So we need to get those things presented to council as soon as possible so they can get back to us and say, yeah, go ahead.
right.
And
Nate has his hand up, by the way. Oh, sorry. Just trying to get him in.
Nate, I'm sorry, Nate, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask, does doing anything in Iona, because the town will have to, there's gonna be some expense there, regardless of, volunteers or whatever, but does that hinge on the results of the CUSP grants? Because aren't we waiting to hear about that to see how much of that $17,000 is going to be spent this year? So do we need to know about that before we make any plans on Iona, I guess is my question.
I'm not sure where the CUSP grant is going to. It's not necessarily Iona. It could be another area.
Isn't that continuing the work on the Thomas Trailhead or Thomas
I
Trail?
think it probably is.
So
Adrian can try to speak to that, but I believe it is just the Thomas Trail.
So how much, if that grant is awarded, will any of that $17,000 be left over for any other?
Will it be left to like match it?
No. Will that grant burn up that entire 17,000, or if we get that grant, does the town even have any more money budgeted this year to do any work? Is my question.
I think it'll pretty much burn that up because the cost per acre up there is pretty high.
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends if we can get free labor.
Look, guys, if we don't have a plan to present, I mean, to me, the first step is we need to develop our priorities and present them to the Board of Trustees. It's up to the Board of Trustees to approve or disapprove, and if they approve, to provide the funding. Right? I mean, we can sit here and second guess, all these projects, whether or not we can get funding, but our job is to come up with the priorities and say, this is what we recommend.
Gotcha.
And if you guys, and the Board of Trustees approves it, you've got to fund it. And if they say, well, we can't fund it, then, well, we've done what we need to do.
And also,
And that's,
I'm sorry.
So
Go ahead.
the other piece is, you know, I don't want to move down to grants too soon, but I did talk to Jesse Stroop earlier this week on some other stuff, and I mentioned to him some things we were doing, and he said, you know, we are willing. When he says we, he means the Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation. He said we're willing to fund fire mitigation efforts, but we need a good grant application, which we have never gotten for fire mitigation. So, you know, we've got a friend in the Historic Green Mountain Falls a foundation that we can rely on. I mean, so I think there are sources of funds, but we need to develop the you know, the projects and the priorities so that we can then go and get the money that we need to get them done.
I agree.
that's correct.
Ann has her hand up.
How do you
Sorry.
raise your hand? I don't know how to raise my hand.
Sorry to
Slide
interrupt.
good work.
Is that, should I speak or shall I let?
Go ahead, Ann.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I contacted the what is it? The not Fitzpatrick, you know who I mean, Christian Cassese group in Oklahoma, and also the historic Green Mountain Falls, so forth. But they just never responded to me. And the only way I get into do it was to write a grant, was to have a number that they would send me the paperwork, and we don't have that. So could it go through the town to apply?
It has to come. It has to come from the town.
Uh-huh. And because I agree with you, I remember Jesse telling me 2 or 3 years ago, well, the trouble is nobody's asked, you know, about things. And so good for you. Good for you. I'm glad you spoke with him. I'll just be
Well, again,
quiet.
it goes back to, you have to have a specific project that can be presented in a grant application. And Jesse's criticism from what he knew about fire mitigation grant requests is they were too vague. They were just sort of an ask for money without any particular.
One thing I noticed is that Jesse's grant, or his agreement with the town regarding all the stuff on Red Devil Mountain and so forth, requires that they do fire mitigation. That's their obligation as a contract with the town. So there's our hook, and I'll be quiet.
Well, yeah. But
I
what
just
I'm
wanted to
saying
mention
is
one
if-
thing real quick about the timeline, David.
Yeah.
When I envision these projects getting started, I'm not thinking until the fall. So I don't know what everybody else on the committee is actually thinking about their timelines in their heads, but this probably, even this Iona project, which is a relatively small project, that probably is not something that the actual trigger wouldn't be able to be pulled on until the fall.
And I think that's totally reasonable, Dan. I think any of the things that we're talking about, you know, there's a lot of planning. There's a lot of moving pieces that need to come together. I mean, we're dealing with having to get the Board of Trustees to sign off on anything. So that means that we have to get our work done so that it can be presented to the Board of Trustees so they can approve it. I mean, it is a time-consuming process. That's why I think we need to start developing our list of priorities of things we want to get done and sort of stage them according to, you know, priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, and a timeline depending on the significance or the visibility of the project for the next. I mean, frankly, we need to be looking forward for the next 1 to 2 to 3 years.
Yep. I'm going to prioritize that and just come up with the actual numbers, cost numbers for different projects, and then prioritizing those projects.
Yeah, that'd be great. But are we all in agreement that Iona as a project is a small one? It is desperately needed. It needs to be and it also is one that would sort of rally town support and visibility. So it's one that we really ought to put on the front burner.
Yes, I agree. Because if there was one spot that I felt like we could go and mow, and that would prevent the fire from coming through Green Mountain Falls, then obviously I would prioritize that. But that's not how it works. So really, like I said, for social capital building, I think the Iona project is a pretty good, it's pretty low hanging fruit. So that's my opinion.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, if you don't mind.
Yes.
In terms of interacting with Jesse for the grant, Dan, I'd love to work with you as you develop the plan on interacting with Jesse and drafting a grant application for them, because I have some grant writing experience and I could definitely put something detailed together to hopefully sweeten the pot when it's presented to the BOT.
Do you have any fuels mitigation plans writing experience?
I hope you
Because
do.
I'm going to have to learn this.
Dude, I could
Google.
probably help out with that, Dan. And I was actually going to ask about that grant. I mean, if it's an open enrollment, let's get on it and let's get a grant put in right now. Or if not, let's find out when they accept grants. I think we could probably get something pretty good put together pretty quickly. So as far as, coming up with prescriptions and writing stuff like that, I can help out with that if need be as well.
Adrian, you're my favorite.
That's what everyone tells me, man.
Really? Oh.
That's great. Wonderful.
Matt, I would like to be involved in that too, because I think that Jesse is willing to give us a little guidance in terms of what they will need to see and what sort of thing that he believes they will fund for us. So, it's always helpful when the person with the money tells you what it is you need to do to get the money.
Ain't that the truth? Well, let's touch base offline between the three of us, or I'm sorry, the four of us with Adrian, and just start working it out.
Okay, that'd be good.
Just one quick thing, if you're gonna all work together on that, and as you write the grant application, keep in mind other agencies that you can send the same application to, basically. Alpamar will take applications for wildland fire mitigation for quite a few things when it comes to wildland fire.
Yeah.
Their grant application's a pain in the butt because I just finished one with them, but they do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good.
Okay. Anything else, Dan, on fuels mitigation?
No. I think we beat that horse.
Well, there's a lot to be done there, and we've got our work cut out for us from here on out. One thing I wanted to ask you about your meeting with Dave Root. When I talked to him several months ago, he said they have a program in which they would come and do an assessment of individual properties or neighborhoods for a fee under the state forestry. I wonder if we should look into doing something like that, so that we can begin to really assess, from a private property standpoint, or from the a total town standpoint, where our hot spots are.
And I believe that's Dan, that person you're getting ready to talk to.
Yeah.
The Forest Service office. He is the
Steve
one
Root.
that does
Yeah.
for the
Okay.
State Forest Service for a fee. So if you ask him, I think he'll be able to do that and schedule it in for probably most pieces of property that the town own. but you'll have to see how much he's going to charge to do that.
Okay.
Could you get that information for us, Dan, when you talk to him?
And I'll just jump in really quickly. CUSP does that as well. We have our own assessment tool that we use, and we actually already have a template built for Green Mountain Falls. We've done a few assessments for private properties in Green Mountain Falls already. I can look in and see what sort of funding we have. It might be something that we can do without any sort of a fee. And what we've done in the past when we do these sort of things, we've done them in Palmer Lake and Arabian Acres. We are able to put together a risk map that shows, a map of all the parcels that we get from the county assessor that are color coded with scores. So it's an easy visual tool to see which private properties are, red, orange, yellow based on their risk. So if you guys are interested, I can look in and see if that's something that we can do in CUSP as well, if that would save some money or make things go a little bit easier.
That would really be helpful,
Come on.
Adrian. That sounds like a great piece of information.
I can't speak for the whole group, but yeah, I would be interested in that.
And
Makes
I
me
can
happy.
actually send out. I'll send an example of like the most recent one we did, Arabian Acres. I can send an example of the risk assessment map, so you guys can kind of see, what the final product looks like with that too.
That would be
Sounds
great.
I remember when you came and looked at our property, Adrian.
I was going to say, I think I did yours.
You sure did after the community meeting
Yeah.
on the comp plan. And that was very helpful. Thank you.
Glad it was helpful.
I will continue to ask Steve Randolph though what the cost would be. Just in case Adrian can't do that or anything like that. Plan B, I guess.
Okay. Dan, good report. All right, we've talked a little bit about grants. Do you have anything to add on grants? Ann?
Oh, me? No, I think you've covered it. And then Rich chimed in. I did try to reach El Pomar and Jesse's group, and then other things have intervened, and I just kind of dropped the ball. So I apologize for that. But I'm glad you've spoken personally with Jesse, because I thought involving a nonprofit, they certainly have an interest in Green Mountain Falls, and that would be wonderful. Because sometimes grants from the government they're so competitive and they take a lot of time to get approved. So he might come through quicker. Thank you.
Okay. So from an education standpoint, that was really what drove me to talk to Jesse, because one aspect I was looking at was the Airbnbs and the hotels are a spot where we really need to focus on the education of visitors who are coming for a short stay in our town, because they're not going to be as attuned to what the fire risk is if they're coming in to spend a long weekend. So we need to make sure that they are appropriately educated. So I was talking to Jesse about what they're doing for their properties, and so we're working that angle as part of the education process. So that just as an update on what we're doing on education. And of course, when we get the final on our evacuation plan, that'll be another element of our education process. Any questions on that?
No, I think educating the tourists that come through Green Mountain Falls is a great idea.
Yeah, the only question I would have on that, are we going to develop our own brochure to put out, or should we use the brochure that the State Forest Service put out or National Forest Service puts out? It would probably save us a lot of money to use theirs, but,
And they
Well,
usually have piles and piles of it too.
and they just got piles of them. And
um,
as far as the evacuation plan, it could be attached to that brochure.
right. And that was what I was talking to Jesse about. He said they already have something that's included in their package that they give to their guests. And so I'd ask him if we could beef that up a little bit so that it's more prominent, because I have stayed at their properties before. And I told him, I said, I don't remember seeing that. So we're going to work together to see if we can beef that up, and whatever we come up with, we could use that to give to other Airbnb type, people to include as education of their short-term stay guests.
Yeah, because their brochures show mitigation. They show, I mean, I hate to redevelop the wheel if we don't have
Right,
to.
right. Yeah, I agree.
I just had a quick comment. This might be an intriguing time to bring up some requirements for fire mitigation on the land use code related to SDRs.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys would like me to forward that on, or if there was some more specifics regarding that to share with Julia to maybe discuss for that code rewrite.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So what is the what are you saying now, Matt?
Oh, sorry. I should probably be more specific. So in this case, we're talking about like Airbnbs, VRBOs, the short-term rental licensees in town. And there is certainly within our capability to make the suggestion that the importance of fire mitigations and the lack of education for people who use these things would maybe put the onus on an owner to have to do some type of fuels mitigation on their property if they wanted to obtain an STR. This is totally me spitballing, so it's not anything fleshed out.
Yeah, I think that would be great. We need to tie them into our overall fire mitigation effort as proactive, elements of what we're doing.
So I think I can
brochures in each one of those places.
yeah,
absolutely.
including the educational materials to them as they obtain STRs. And then if there's more specific requirements that we want to see in code, I guess what I would request from members of this committee is just if there are ideas related to that, send them my way. And then I can forward them off to Julia and Todd for consideration.
And that is out there on the wildland fire code for communities. It would be really hard for us to develop it, but it's already out there.
Well, and that's why I wouldn't expect us to develop anything. It's totally one of those situations where we have a cool idea and then they get to develop it.
Yeah, because it's, there's already standards out there, national standards.
Well, if you could pass that along to Julia, that would be great.
I will. I'll make a note of it.
All right, thanks. All right. I think we're done with reports, unless anybody has anything else they want to add. Let's move to new business. Item A, drafting a funding request for fire for fuels mitigation. I think we've kind of covered. I think the key point that I really wanted to drive home here is that we need to get down to the nitty gritty of developing a plan and sort of saying, this is what we want to do. This is the scope of it. This is where, and this is how much it's going to cost, so that we can take that to the Board of Trustees for approval. I think our goal needs to be having that pulled together for our next meeting so that we can all agree that that is what we want to present to the Board of Trustees at their next meeting, which, what's the next meeting? Is it this coming week?
Tuesday. Yeah, of next week, the 4th.
Okay, so if we come together on the 26th of May and we have something that pulled together that we're ready to present to the Board of Trustees on their next meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in June, then let's try to shoot for that. Does that everybody think we can do that?
I honestly I don't know if I can, but I can just tell you that I'll do my best to shoot for it.
Okay, well, let's set that as a goal and see if we can get there. And I'm happy to work with you on that. So that was my only point there. Anybody else have anything on drafting funding requests? The next item, I really wanted to, I'm probably as frustrated as anybody, with some of the rules and regulations that we have to follow and being in compliance, but it is what it is. When we had our meeting in which we assigned various people with the responsibility, Dan with fuel mitigation, and Rich with evacuation, and Ann with grants, and me with education, we said, we're going to be the subcommittee chairs. I didn't realize that a subcommittee chair had to be approved by the Board of Trustees until Matt informed me of that. Nor did I understand that if we formed a group of volunteers to be on our subcommittee, those volunteers had to be also approved by the Board of Trustees. So I just wanted to talk briefly and just say, we probably need to take a step back here and say, rather than being subcommittee chairs, what we are is fire mitigation committee members who have taken on the lead role as it relates to your area of responsibility, and not call it subcommittee chair.
I'm fine with that, but I guess I'm gonna have to throw away all those business cards I made.
It works for me. I don't have a subcommittee anyway.
So Matt, does that keep us out of trouble?
Yes, and I tremendously appreciate you guys working with me on this. I am not trying to browbeat and be the guy at town hall who's going to obstruct you guys from achieving your goals. That's not who I am, okay? And I just want to make sure everybody knows that. I think we're in a good position now. It's such a fine line most of the time, and I'll tell you guys, I'm learning as well. And so I appreciate your guys' understanding on my part as I try and tackle and navigate everything going on in GMF. And trying to apply the complexities of open meeting law and all that to our interesting Zoom meetings. So I feel very comfortable with moving forward, just calling them the priorities, whatever you guys choose in that regard. Just in the subcommittees aspect, there are so many steps, and I doubt we want to talk about them, but I wrote them all down just in case. If we do want to pursue creating legitimate subcommittees in the future, I have a pretty good understanding on how to do that now, but I would say unless they were absolutely needed, the way we're operating currently and having leaders of those priorities meeting with volunteers to assist in that work is 100% acceptable.
Great.
Yeah, and I'd say unless we gain some kind of authority or autonomy because of that, I have no problem. You can call me whatever you want. I mean, let's just get the job done. And I definitely don't want to give anybody on the Board of Trustee any headaches. So.
Very much appreciated, and likewise on your guys' end. I don't want to, and I know, and I will speak behalf on the board or on behalf of the board on this, but I don't want to give you guys headaches on this either, and try and move forward so that way it's I'm trying to think of the words. I'm losing the words. So it's yeah, I know. Sorry, that's me. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm still at the office. Sorry, guys.
So Matt, real quick question though.
Yes, sir.
Let's say that we had a project and we wanted to get some volunteers to help out. Have we got to get approval from the Board of Trustees every time we have some volunteers?
No. You can, if let's say the Iona project turns into a specific town project, I'm sure that one aspect of that will be volunteer applications in some way. But in terms of gathering information and things like meetings, I mean, that's not something that we need to go to the board with every single time you guys have somebody you want to work with.
Okay.
I would argue it's more related to substantial work and in that regard.
Okay. Any questions or comments there from anybody on better understanding the whole committee, subcommittee compliance issues?
The only comment I would make is that the clearer the information is of what is required, before we actually start chainsaws, the better. That way we
Yeah.
know exactly what boxes we need to check in order to move forward with the project.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Dan. And I will have a precise understanding of that for us. So we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I almost said it backwards, but yes, we will do that.
Okay, good, thanks. Item C, we thought we were going to have a new member application to talk about tonight. Unfortunately, the person that we thought was going to make application decided at the last minute because of some personal issues not to make the application. That's not going to take place. And moving on to correspondence, you sent me an email resigning from the Fire Mitigation Committee. I assume you still want to go through with that.
Yes, I do. I think I need to. I did explain to you and I explained to Matt that my sister is not well and I may need to help her. And my age, I said in my letter that I'm the same age as Dick Bratton, and I really love the town and I'm so interested, but age is catching up. And I'll always tune in if you don't mind, just as one of these extra people that loves the town. But as far as having the actual obligation, as you all have taken on, I just don't think I better do it. So I hope we can find somebody. Goodness, I was surprised. I thought that, who was it? Mr. Usman was going to maybe do it. And, but I bet you can find somebody. You'll still have enough people to operate, even if I resign tonight, right?
Yes, I think we'll be able to continue our business.
Well, that's wonderful. And you all are doing a great job, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ann.
Sorry to hear about your sister, Ann. Hopefully everything goes well.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. And I'm sure, you guys are great. Rich is not very young, but he certainly knows a lot.
I'm
And
ancient.
you've got the evacuation thing going. I really do think that is number one that could be established fast. And that puts people on notice too, that this is a real problem. And it's educational and safety. So thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
All right.
Other than calling me old, that's okay.
Yeah, but you're so handsome.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it.
So one thing I wanted to bring up tonight also was the last Board of Trustees meeting. We've talked a lot about the Board of Trustees. We were asked to give a report, and I must say I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. But this next trustees meeting, Matt, I would like to have some time on the agenda to show that map that we have of the mitigation that's going on by CUSP, to update the board on that because they specifically asked about that. Can you make sure that that is included in the in the board pack?
Oh, yeah, I know a guy. So, definitely.
Okay. Because I think we need to provide, and also would like to, why don't you and I get together offline and
Perfect.
talk about what I want to include in that,
Yes, sir.
so I can report all the great things that we're doing.
Will do. Sounds good.
All right. I think we've sort of reached the end of our agenda. Does anybody feel like we've missed anything tonight that we need to cover?
I don't believe so. I'll try to get you everything I said I'd get before the next meeting, since I'm not going to be there.
I'm going to write up a sort of list of timeline and agreed upon responsibilities and get that out to everybody. So I'm going to say by Friday, so we all kind of know what we're tasked with doing and what our priorities are, so that we can have a very productive next few weeks before our next committee meeting. Does that sound all right?
Sounds good.
Okay. So next meeting is May 26th. Appreciate all the hard work you all are doing. Adrian, I appreciate you tuning in for all of our meetings because you're a great resource that we desperately need. And we have a great relationship with CUSP. So thanks to you for always being in our fire mitigation committee meetings.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go as far as to say as you guys desperately need me, but I'm always fascinated to hear what you guys are doing. Green Mountain Falls is a big part of what we do at CUSP, so it's great to be involved.
Well, and please pass on our gratitude to Michelle and everybody else involved.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Happy anniversary, Rich. Sorry. Happy anniversary.
Hey,
Thank
happy
you.
anniversary.
Thank you.
Again, thanks everybody for all your hard work. It's really meaningful to the entire town. So, with that, I say let's call it.
Okay.
All right. See
All
you
right.
guys.
See
Bye.
you all soon.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Enjoy your evening.
Two.
Bye.